Why doesn't anyone listen to albums anymore? When I think about this question, I think about concept albums. I think about how Pink Floyd or The Who made these albums where essentially the whole album was a story or there was a theme, and the whole concept, the whole idea was to listen to the whole thing all the way through as one unit. I think it'd be very, very hard for bands to do that now because people just don't listen to albums like that anymore. Well, why is that? So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about records. If I wanted to listen to this album, I'd have to take it out of the record sleeve, put it on a record player, take the arm, carefully put the needle at the very beginning of the record, and then let it play. And then I would go over to my couch and I would sit down and I would listen to the album. And then when the album was done, I'd have to go pick up the record needle, put it back, take the record off, flip it on the other side, go and do the same thing to do side two. Now, if I wanted to listen to a different song, I'd have to go over, pick up the needle, and gently go to the next groove or to the next song that I would want to listen to and then drop it down. So what I'm getting at is it was kind of hard to go and mix between songs when you were listening to an album. So essentially back then, you listened to an album. Next came the 8-track player. And the thing about the 8-track tape was that you couldn't fast forward it, you couldn't rewind it, you only had a button. And then you had 4 selections that you can choose. So you can go to the album in 4 different random areas. And if you had an 8-track player, you're kind of stuck to listen to the whole thing. If you wanted to get to a certain song, well, you just had to wait the song out. And there was no control. So back in the 60s and the 70s, your 2 choices were records and 8-tracks. Both were very, very difficult to select between songs. So you had to essentially go for the ride. And that's a time when people would make albums and they would make concept albums, and you would go, and the idea is you would listen to the album as a unit. And then the tape came out. And what made the tape awesome is that you could put this in a Walkman. And the nice thing is that you could finally stop and fast forward songs. And that really made things convenient. But you still had to stop, push fast forward, take a guess to well, when's the next song going to stop? Stop the song, play it, let's hear it. Oh, I got to go a little bit further, push, fast forward, stop. Oh, it went a little too back, then I got to go back to rewind. And that was still kind of a pain in the ass. But then the CD came out. And this kind of changed things. Because now you would take out the CD, you would put it in a CD player. But with the press of a button, you could go right to the song that you wanted to. If you didn't like that song, you can go right to the next one. You could fast forward, you could rewind easily. I remember I had a 5-disc changer, and I was able to put 5 CDs in at the same time. And then I could literally just go between the different CDs and listen to whatever song I wanted to with literally a press of a button. Then streaming started to happen. MP3s, music on your phone, iTunes. Now there wasn't even a CD to put into a player. You literally choose the song by pushing a button. And if you wanted to listen to the next song, I just want to go to that one. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a very great thing. But what happened is the idea of listening to an entire album just became non-existent. And one thing I think about too is back in the day, you would actually have to buy your music. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but I remember I'd have to save up my money and maybe buy 1 album a month or 1 tape a month. And then I'd have to save my pennies, and then I'd have more money than I'd buy another album. And when I bought an album or a tape, I just threw down $10 for that thing, and I was going to make sure that I was going to get my listens out of it, and I would listen to something. And even if I didn't really like it at first, I would make a point to try to listen to it over and over and over again to eventually like it. And then one thing I remember was Christmas. When I got into music, all I wanted for Christmas was just CDs or tapes, whatever it was at the time. And my mom would just give me like $100. She'd be like, here you go buy yourself $100 worth of records, come back, I'll wrap it for you, and then that would be your Christmas present. And it was awesome. I loved it. But what I noticed was that when I would have 10 CDs in front of me, I wouldn't put in the time with those albums that I did when I would just buy like one album at a time. And a lot of those albums, I just weren't familiar with the songs or the albums as an entirety as I was when I bought something one at a time. Fast forward to now with Spotify. A lot of music streaming services are great. For 10, 15 bucks a month, you can have access to pretty much every artist you want. Led Zeppelin, here's their entire discography. But the problem is who's going to take the time to listen to like Led Zeppelin 4 or Led Zeppelin 3 or Pink Floyd's The Wall all the way through? A lot of people just don't do that anymore. I really think our attention spans have shortened as we've gotten older. I mean, I'm the same way too. I don't really listen to albums anymore. I will listen to songs that are off an album. Most people I know, they create playlists. They'll pick and choose certain songs off each album and they make a playlist, and then that's all they do. So, will people ever go back to listening to records as an entirety? I really don't think so. The only way I think they could do it is if they can make an album more than just a collection of songs. Or maybe try to create some kind of overall experience that goes beyond just listening to a bunch of tunes together. It might happen. It could happen. But at this point in time, we're all listening to songs one track at a time. So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about records. If I wanted to listen to this record, I'd have to go